Black money.
About economic liberation and freedom.
Critical conversations to invigorate our communities through Black-led CDFIs.
But most importantly, we want people to create wealth.
When we look at our communities, we still see a big disinvestment.
Going from resourceful to resourced.
CDFIs have that high touch. They understand their customers. They know how to reach out to those customers. They stay in touch with those customers.
We are trying to create job makers and not just job takers.
Yeah, I've even heard it said recently that great leaders don't lead from the top down, they lead from the bottom up because they're actually lifting everybody.
We have to do more than just being a regular lender.
Don't give me this story about if I teach you how to fish. Give me some money.
Hello, LinkedIn. Justin Minott back with you after your New Year break. You got a little bit of time off from me. Hope you didn't miss me too much. I missed you. I am here with the new president of the African American Alliance of CDFI CEOs, Amber Bond, the magnanimous, the one and only. So good to have you here. And if you are here on LinkedIn in the chat, you better be dropping all those little celebration emojis and the clap emojis and all the things because that's my president. Really excited to have you here, Amber.
So excited to be here, Justin, the host with the most. I'm just thrilled to have my first opportunity to sit in the seat across from you.
Oh, it's time. It's time. And now to let you all know, Amber's been on a bit of a media tour right now in the wake of the announcement of the presidency. So the fact that she made time for us here today is a really big deal. Amber, we love Journey, and yours has been a really incredible one. The path that has led you to this seat as the president of a really impactful organization nationwide doing work with Black-led CDFIs. Walk us through how you got here, the making of Amber Bond.
The making, right? The origin story, if you will.
Right.
I'm sure. Happy to. I when I think about some of those critical steps that led here, there are definitely a few that, stand out. I think first would just be the life experience, the lived experience in this country. As a Black woman in a Black family, right? And so my parents were divorced when I was about 7, which left my mother a single mom of 3, and she was a public school teacher. So the divorce definitely impacted us economically, and she did the best that she could, as most all single mothers do, right? It doesn't mean that they're able to provide everything that you want, but they strive for giving you the basics and the necessities. And that's exactly what my mom did. And in that process of her being a head of household, a provider, I saw firsthand that initial look at a side hustle. Didn't know it at the time what it meant, but she became a representative, essentially selling retirement products to other people in the education system. And so I saw her balance teaching and doing this really mission-focused work of helping educators retire with dignity. And, again, I didn't know it at the time to understand it as a side hustle, but would later be really impactful. It definitely established a work ethic in me. As early as middle school, I was selling candy in school to try and earn, extra money. So my first side hustle was selling Snickers and Twix and lollipops in the hallways. And that led to me being a shampoo girl when I was maybe about 14, and then doing hair, learning how to do hair, doing hair in college out of my dorm room. And so all of this really kind of set the foundation for me understanding that not every small business has to be a Facebook. Not every small business has to be huge spotlight and a national brand for it to be really impactful to a household budget. And like most cycles sometimes happen, I found myself to be a single mother in my 20s. And I started my career after graduating in financial services in 2007, right? The worst time.
Right, perfect, right. That's perfect.
So,
hey, what did we talk about? God given his hardest battles to his strongest warriors, like making sure we're not signed up on that list again for this year. But that's you
Oh,
did it.
I was on that list for like 12 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there I was in the early 2000s as a single mom on public assistance, struggling to make ends meet, really kind of finding that in myself of what I saw my mother create, right? And then started doing some of those side hustle entrepreneurial activity for myself. And so I think it's that piece is that I've been there with the customers, with the small business owners that our members focus on every day. I understand wanting to do better, having a skill set, but really there being a gap that can get you from idea or a start to something that's really sustainable and that can ultimately create jobs. The other is that I was largely in Black centric spaces growing up. And so I really learned firsthand that when we get together, we do things right all the time. High school was primarily a Black population. I went to North Carolina Central University, which is
all right. Shout
you. My first job out of college was with Mechanics and Farmers Bank, which is one of the few Black-owned banks in the country. Understanding the history there between NC Mutual Life, James E. Shepherd, the school, and Black Wall Street here in Durham. And so it was a real aha moment for me of living how we have defied statistics since we've been in this country. Right. And so I think just that being at my core, I didn't know any different. And so when I went out into other corporate spaces and sort of found myself having some of the same shared stories with other minorities in corporate America, I realized that it solidified for me that I wanted to make my work focus on Black issues and elevating Black experiences and focusing on the historical context of who we are in this country. And so that sort of led to me being joining Carolina Small Business Development Fund, which is a CDFI in North Carolina under our CEO's leadership, Linwood B. Long Sr., and his intentionality around impact in Black communities. At one point there, I was the director of lending, and he asked for our denial rates for Black businesses. And he said, what can we do to fix it? Figure it out. But just having the freedom and space to say, this is a Black-led organization that says we're not going to miss the mark. We're going to make sure that we're doing what we said we're going to do. And then having a team in place that is also dedicated to that mission so that time doesn't pass and you're short on the data. You're short on the impact. And so kind of having that experience as a practitioner, I fell in love with the CDFI space and also learned about other groups that had culturally specific focuses as well. The Latinx community, the Native community, the Asian community, they all have organizations that speak to the needs of their specific population. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's a great thing. And it's what leads to the most, not maybe the most elevated stories, but certainly elevated impact. And for me, being a part of the African American Alliance of CDFI CEOs was just that. It was an opportunity to say, I'm minding my business and all of it's Black, to quote.
Come on now. Come on now.
That's sort of a little bit about, or a lot of it about my journey and what got me here.
Oh my gosh, I have so many questions. This is brilliant. And thank you for sharing this. I'm learning a ton even about your journey. What drew you to the financial sector, right? So it's like, okay, I'm saying I want to be about Black community. Why the financial sector as a vehicle or as a tool for you?
I've always been a bit of a numbers geek, and just gravitated to math. And then I think also understanding, I grew up broke, I don't know a fancy way to say, we grew up broke. And so I also did have an interest in understanding finance and being able to, whether it's looking at it from an income bracket standpoint or building assets all those things that I didn't get exposure to as a child became focal points of interest for me. And then when you learn the statistics and you find out how similar our stories are within the community, to me, that was the key, that above, maybe not above anything else, right? Because health is wealth, and there are some things that are very important, but financial literacy, entrepreneurship, are some of the biggest ways, home ownership are some of the biggest ways that we're able to build wealth, generational wealth, wealth
Right.
for our families, assets for our families.
Mm.
And so it just stuck for me. And between the lived experience, understanding the statistics, and that journey for myself.
Yeah, I love that. Now, that's the financial piece. Why CDFIs? Like, why did you feel like leaning in with this work at the Alliance, supporting Black-led CDFIs was so necessary, and the potential for impact was so big? What is it about CDFIs, specifically Black-led CDFIs, that you feel so passionate about?
Well, for the CDFI space in general, I think what attracted me was the fact that those that are not banks are in a non-regulatory space. And it gives them a lot of flexibility in the design of their products and services to reach underserved populations. So that to me is huge. Give me a sandbox, give me some
Right.
flexibility to kind of think outside the box, figure it out, and adjust to the clientele that I'm attempting to serve. So the mission focused aspect of it was just, went straight to my heart. Black-led CDFIs specifically tend to be located within the community. So we're giving folks a proximity. We go lean in real hard on the flexibility part in creating those products and services that speak to what we know culturally happens especially for our businesses in terms of financial record keeping and tax planning and all these things. And then also we tend to make sure that we have representation, not just at the top, but in all levels of the organization. So we're not trying to push products and services in a community that we don't know, and with folks that may not look like us, and share those same lived experiences to be able to relate to our stories and find the solutions.
Right.
So all those things I think are so important when we talk about Black-led CDFI specifically.
Oh, I love that so much. Okay, so now you were talking about wealth building as a really important piece, specifically in the Black community, and you were saying that health is wealth. I feel like there's an opportunity to tie those together, because we're seeing that where there's wealth disparities, there are health disparities, especially when it comes to some of the things with climate resilience and all those pieces. Would you talk about that piece and some of what that opportunity is in this current moment?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And it speaks to what a huge part of our focus is right now in terms of climate and environment, right? We know that environmental effects have disproportionately impacted Black communities. Our neighborhoods are near all sorts of contaminants, right? It's been going on for a long time. We've seen some relatively recent media coverage across the country of this happening, where we've been poisoned, and no one cares to the extent that things have really changed and that the needle has moved. But we're at the same time facing an incredible opportunity, especially with the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, to, I would say, for the first time, have a seat at the table in terms of making sure that those resources are equitably distributed and reach our communities. And so I think with the Alliance, with our organizations, because of the history of our impact and that we know our communities, we're in them, we can be a true change agent, specifically as it relates to environment and climate, and those tie to other health indicators. And so this is 2024. We've got some great programming things happening, but I think specifically that focus on the Justice Climate Fund and the work that we're doing there, and creating access for our members to, it's billions of dollars. Hopefully, at least millions are with us, so that they can do this work and make this shift.
Yeah, brilliantly said. Let's lean more in this direction of where the alliance is heading, right? You mentioned that there's this increased focus on climate. Where do you see this organization going in a way that maximizes its impact in the communities?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I think for this year specifically, at least at the top of my list are a couple things that we'll be focusing on. Not huge shift in terms of our pillars, our guiding stars, but certainly in the
Mhm.
in the how. And we're listening, I think is the first part. We love to survey our members. we love to ask
Members
questions.
on here say nice things.
We love to ask questions and get to the specifics because it does guide so much of the work that we do. And we want to make sure that
Mhm.
it's always relevant. And so for me, three things really are elevated in the spotlight this year. The first would be creating greater visibility for our members. We have
Mhm.
nearly 100 organizations that are connected to us, whether they are certified CDFIs or they're emerging CDFIs, and they are hopeful to get their certification. And through those roughly 100 organizations, there are thousands of stories. There are thousands of success stories, examples of
Yeah.
impact, examples of reach, of connection that I think are largely lost on paper. There's
Mhm.
there's something about data that's in a spreadsheet or even on a one pager that's a little different from, I'll say, elevated media. And so
Mhm.
for me, it's creating more visibility for our members and the impact that they have. Leveraging media, I think, is a huge opportunity, and for the Alliance to serve as some sort of centralized resource to make that happen so that our stories are not lost. And so that we have the ability to showcase the work that we're doing and help attract funds as well, right? We want to
Mhm.
pour some oil on that little fire. The second would be accessibility. So we are a network intermediary, and I think we have a great opportunity and position to market our membership into the investment community to help continue to coalesce really catalytic resources that level the playing field for Black-led CDFIs. Our balance
Mhm.
sheets trail 6-1 to our white counterparts, and
Wow.
that's no accident, right? That's a reflection of the disparities our communities face in terms of access to capital and the challenges that we have as well at the CDFI level. And so I think we talked about GGRF a little bit, but through our Black Renaissance Fund, it's all about creating that access to information, to money specifically. And then the third would be around supporting with productivity. So healthy leaders have strong support systems and strong networks. They
That's
have
right.
capable teams, talent. They're able to recruit and retain. They have technology and tools that enable their growth. All of this relates to them being productive. And so a lot of our programming will focus on enhancing all of these efforts and making sure that they have what they need to meet their mission. If we have a member that
Mhm.
that has identified a need within their service market and they can't fulfill it because of capacity issues, that's where I feel the Alliance can be most helpful. We should be able to help solve those problems.
I love that. And this is the stuff that makes me get out of bed every morning. Like, we get to genuinely serve the people who are serving
Right.
our communities, like people who are on the front line. What do you need? How do you get more impact in the work that you're doing? And I love it. Love having you as the president of this organization. Now, Amber, I hope you're really taking in some of this chat. So much love coming in there for you. And you should feel good, and you should feel so proud to be in this role. And I will say this is a good opportunity for me, how inspired I am as a father raising two Black girls who are, 6 and 4. I can tear up, coming up, powerful young women. And the other day, I was the flyer for this event. Had it up on my computer. We were getting ready for some of the LinkedIn Live, and Magnolia comes over, my oldest one, and and I said, "Hey, Magnolia." She goes, "Oh, I know, that's your president." she goes, "Oh, that's the president of your organization." Because I was about to tell her, "Oh, Magnolia, you know who this is?" She's like, "Yeah, that's the president of your organization."
Oh.
I had told her a couple of days before, but just for that to be so normal for them to see this type of leadership, with locks, with the whole, like that for me.
Yeah.
Well, just means the world. So I gotta tell you, I'm so inspired by that. What does that mean to you now? Let's talk about that piece. As a Black woman in this leadership role, what does that mean to you?
It's huge, right? I think I never want to diminish that component at all. That I am a Black woman in this role. I definitely feel the responsibility of it. But more than anything, I'm focused on the impact and the work, right? And I don't think I've even gotten to the point where I'm like, oh man, let's think about this in regard to my legacy specifically, so much as the stories that I want to come out of those who were impacted while I was in the role, if that makes sense. I certainly hope that it means something for girls across the country, right? Because we don't always get to see examples. We get to see celebrities sometimes, and that's great. You can become what you see. But seeing Black women who, and let's be honest, even like you said, with the locks, the natural styles, who were just embracing the Blackness of who they are,
Right.
It means the world to see those images in day-to-day life in corporate America, right? The corporate queens that are out there crushing it as well.
Right.
On the
We see
nonprofit
y'all.
side, just in every lane. And so I'm so thankful for an opportunity to contribute to the imagery of Black women that are in these spaces, creating impact.
And I love how you said that. And I will lean in even further. For you, it's not an image. Like, this is who you are. Like, you're not just leaning into like the image of it. You're it. And that's so encouraging to see. So I just want to encourage you. And then also for the other leaders listening to this, I want you to take note of what she said and what she didn't say. That she said she's focusing on the impact, and that is how you make a legacy.
Yeah.
If you focus on your legacy, you end up, I think, focusing a little too inward. But when you focus on the impact, the legacy gets made. So you're doing it. What a brilliant example of leadership. Love having that. Now let's hit in for our members here, the CDFIs listening, some of what you've seen, because you've been deep in the game for a long time, with Carolina Small Business, now with the Alliance, doing this type of work. What would you say are some of the best practices and things that CDFI should be focusing on this year specifically to grow their impact?
That's a great question. I think I can talk about some of the things that I have noted as a practitioner, and then even in some of the movement and activity within our membership, things that have certainly risen to the top for me. The first would be that we continue to be very intentional about the development of products and services that serve us, and an understanding and embracing that it's going to mean some creativity, right? But that as CDFIs, especially those that are not MDIs, we have a really unique opportunity to be creative and to approach things differently, because we're in a non-regulatory environment. And so I would say lean into that, especially as we continue to see the changes in the economy and inflation and all the economic factors that are impacting our communities, that it's even more important to come back to the table and say, is this working, or how can it work better for our communities? The second I would say would be my personal one of my personal nuggets from being a practitioner is don't dance for the gold. No matter how.
Okay, tell me more.
Don't dance for the gold.
Don't dance for the gold.
Because we sometimes have funders that want to dictate the programming aspects of what we do, and there's a dictation without context, and that never works. But we have the context, and so fight for that opportunity to have design control. Be the Tyler Perry of your CDFI.
Amen.
You set the standard. the products and services and find investors that are aligned with that, because I think ultimately it leads to sustainability a lot, whatever sustainability looks like for your organization, a lot
Yeah,
faster.
I want to camp out there a minute on the funding side. So speak to the funders then. So you're saying for the, don't dance for the gold. For the funders that are wanting to be a part of this work, what does a good funder actually look like? Who's not dictating? Give me some more of that, because I think funders have some work to do as well.
Oh, sure. Well, the best funders, my favorite funders.
Come on, and we're calling you.
Are those that do general operating capital.
Say it again.
Go general operating capital that gives organizations the freedom and flexibility to decide where that investment can be most impactful, whether it is in people or technology or research, or a host of other things that say, hey, you know the work you're doing. Here's the money to help you do it. We believe in the map that you have created. We believe in the impact that you've done, the history that you've shown, and we don't want to tell you what to do. We just want you to do it well. Those are my favorite.
Right. And I feel like that requires not just a shift in practice, but a shift in values, because it's assuming now that, hey, maybe the people most proximate to this actually know what's going on the ground and might just know what's best in their own communities, right? But it says, funny to say that out loud, but the other model assumes that the funder knows best.
Right.
And that, hey, we're going to help you all, get it together.
Yeah. Here's the work we want to do, and we're going to fund you to do it, versus, like you said, an approach that is more focused on saying, you're here, you're in the space, you know it, and we want to help you to do the work that you're doing. And I think I would say maybe for funders also, that is understanding the organization's existing impact framework, and either that aligns or it doesn't, but don't try to change it. And that's the question. What is your impact framework? What are you moving towards? What do you consider success? How do you measure that? And yes, I see Isis comment. Make sure it's unrestricted. Thank you, Isis.
That's unrestricted. Yeah. Hey, you know what? I like this analogy because you said go, but now it is you go. It's you go.
We just fixed it.
Right. That's it. Amen, Isis.
But yeah, so having alignment, I think, with that impact framework is huge. And a lot of times that's going to go beyond jobs created and retained, number of loans deployed, number of units created. Like, it's going to go beyond those simple, I won't say simple, like I'm not trying to minimize.
Yeah, but kind of the standard metrics.
Yeah, so standard. It's going to go much further than that. And it's also going to catch some of those intangibles. Like, a lot of times connection and relationship is a success. It is impact, right? And it's not going to show in some of those traditional standard metrics. And I think that maybe the third best would be those that just bring or offer a seat to the table in the design. Maybe there are some very high level impact goals that a funder has, but before they get into the design of what that program could look like, they're inviting folks to the table in the design stage. I think that can be huge. Maybe that's the low hanging fruit, the first step that you can push within your foundation or organization to see happen.
Right. And then it even feels collaborative. I love Ron Brooks, one of our members, doing brilliant work. He said funders should simply review CDFI's receipts and then stand on business together. Yes. That's it. We standing on business. And Amber said she's standing on business and all things Black business. Yeah. That's what it is. So love it. Okay, and let's head back into some of the best practices for CDFIs. I wanted to expand on the funding piece, but you were cooking on that too.
Oh, yeah. We talked about that, the funder piece. I think, holding the line as it relates to the funding opportunities that make the most sense for your organization. Because I've seen organizations kind of get lost in it, where they are trying to raise as much as they can in a short amount of time, and they're agreeing to compliance factors and impact and different measures that are kind of outside of the initial niche and scope that they designed, their initial intent. And what do they call, like, mission creep, right? We don't want mission creep just for the sake of the being able to say we raised certain dollars. Just a
Agreed.
warning against, maybe that temptation to go that route. I kind of mentioned this, but the impact framework, having that established, I think impact framework and then storytelling go together, because when you've designed that framework, it is going to move the stories that come out of your work. Like it's
Right.
you're creating it, you're kind of curating it at that level. And so I think having it organization wide, and here's why I say that and I harp on it so much. Everybody is in sales, right? Whether you're a corporation or whether you're a nonprofit, you're in sales. If you have money coming in the door, you're selling something. And for nonprofits and specifically CDFIs, that's what you're selling. You're selling impact.
Yeah.
So what is your product exactly in terms of impact that you're selling? And your impact framework should articulate what you're selling, right? And then you have the stories, and you can show the alignment there to grow your impact, but also grow your funder base. And then the last thing I would say maybe to mention is board development and relationships. I've seen a lot of examples lately where I think there's some, I won't say a divide, but an opportunity to definitely improve this. Your board is such an important part of the organization in terms of its governance, that the people you have in place and in those positions, it can impact the CEO, the work that's done, and the direction that the organization is moving. And so if that is a challenge, is understanding the importance of board development and those relationships over time and longevity.
Yeah. I think that's huge. I want to give a shout out to Ken Branson, Durham local, talking about impact framework and storytelling. Now he just happens to be a master storyteller via video and of some other mediums, but brilliant man doing brilliant work. Good. Now, here's what I want to know from you, Amber. You have a unique position in that you've worked very closely with Mr. Linwood Long, Sr., our CEO now, and you two are serving closely together as president and him as CEO. I want to know from you, what's so special about this man? Give some flowers, because I just feel like people need their flowers today, not yesterday, not tomorrow. So give some flowers to Linwood. What about this man? Because you've worked with him closely for a while and you're still doing it. Why?
We said why? Oh man, Linwood, there's a lot to say about Mr. Linwood B. Long Sr. He lives this work. I think that's a part of it, right? Is that his passion for improving the lives of Black folks is just ingrained in him. It's not what he does. It's who he is. And he'll never separate from that, from lending himself to moving the needle. He has an amazing story of his own, the story of his life, the things that he's experienced in this country and the work he's done for this country in the military. His family life, his roots and his faith, all of these things are so ingrained in his passion and the work that he does. And, and he's got receipts, right? He's been at this for more than 30 years.
Talking about standing on business.
Yeah, he's been standing on business for a long time.
Before standing on business was a hashtag.
Absolutely. He was doing it.
He was doing it.
And he's unapologetic. I think that's one of my other favorite things about Linwood is you're going to know his opinion. You're going to know what he thinks. You're going to know how he feels about it, because he is unapologetically Black, unapologetically focused on the alliance, unapologetically for these members. And it's a part. You'll never hear him talk in a public setting and not mention it. You'll never hear him, in a public setting and neglect to call out injustice. You'll never hear him be silenced about the impacts of racism in this country, and the inequities that have persisted since we got here. So I love that he's unapologetic. I love that he's rooted and grounded in his faith. I also love that he's for the people. I have worked with him, served with him, really now I think in 3 capacities, and that has never changed. He is always someone who wants to see his team do well. And I've learned so much from him about leadership, and how to take care of the people, that it's people first. Without a team, you can't do anything. Where you can have the best of intentions and you can write a plan and all of these things. But if you can't find talented individuals who share that mission and create an environment for them to thrive, it's all gonna go up in smoke anyway. And so he is by the people, for the people, and he means it.
Yes, I love it. Thank you. I just want to take that opportunity because you have such a unique perspective on him and his work. So I love that. Thank you. Now for the Alliance. So we have a lot going on in this country right now to dismantle a lot of this type of work that really advances equity, that closes the racial wealth gap in some really meaningful ways. There's lawsuits, there's all kinds of things going out. I want to hear the case for why does the Alliance even need to exist, right? And like, if we've made so much progress and why does the Alliance even need to exist? And I'll say this, before I let you say that, I'll say that for all organizations listening who are doing this type of work, to me, that's the case you need to keep making, is on the offensive. Why does this work need to exist? Because as this type of stuff comes out, that's the proof that they're looking for in terms of like, why the funding, why the this, why the that, right? So why the Alliance? Why do we even need this organization in 2024?
I wish that we lived in a society where the Alliance was not necessary, but we don't. Especially with the recent attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion, the attacks on our education system to remove context from history, the lawsuits with Fearless Fund, and all of these things, right? Coordinated efforts to dismantle progress that has been made. And that's just it. It's to dismantle progress. We never got equality.
Right. We came from here to here, but we ain't here.
It's to dismantle the progress towards equality that we still haven't reached. And people will say, "Oh, well, slavery ended, almost now about 160 years ago." Affirmative action was roughly 60 years old, right? And so 160 years of incremental progress, and we never got to equality. So talk to me about dismantling DEI when we've had 250 years of equality. Then maybe the Alliance won't need to exist. Once we got to a place, once we can get to a place where everything is baseline and equal, and everybody has an equal standing and equal opportunity, and the statistics have changed, give me 250 years of that. Then we can talk about letting go of DEI and all these buzzwords. And really,
that'll preach.
It's an attempt to change the vocabulary from the outside, right? Don't say that you want to give preferential treatment to certain groups. But it's not about destroying the words and changing the vocabulary. It is about removing the context of slavery, racism, and all the things that have followed as it relates to Black people in this country. And that's the danger, is removing the context. You can have the words, right? We got synonyms. You can have the words,
right,
but what you can't have is the context. And so the Alliance is here to make sure that that context is never removed. We're not going to be quiet about it, right? You can call us combative, you can call us argumentative, but you will never call us quiet. Because until we see the change that we're here for, we're going to continue to be adamant about being unapologetically Black in this space and what that means, as it relates to our membership and our communities. And so really, truly, equity is the only acceptable outcome. That's it.
Yeah.
Anything less is what we've already had. We've already experienced that. What it looks like to be less than equal, what it looks like to be a fraction of a man, what it looks like not to have rights. We've already done that. So equity is the only acceptable outcome. And that's what we have to stand on. And we're not there yet. So until we're there, and then we have 250 years of being there and equal treatment, then the Alliance can talk about wrapping it up.
Right. Down here is done. Yeah, talk to me when we've had 250 years of equity. I love that. That'll preach all the way. And I love that line, equity is the only acceptable outcome. So as we're here, speak to some of the allies, the partners, the people that can participate in this work with the Alliance going forward. Who are we calling into this work in 2024 to join us on this journey?
I would say at the top of that list would be folks that are not moved by the scare tactics of all of this. And we know it's designed to shake the tree, right? That's what these lawsuits are for. You know, now affirmative action has been removed from the admissions process for college. Make no mistake, that was just the start, right? They want a domino effect. They want to say we're going to have one win, another, and another, and another. So I don't think any category of diversity-focused initiatives are safe, right?
Yeah.
And so the first would be those, especially in the advocacy space, where we can lock arms and move forward with an offensive strategy. We definitely want those folks in the fold. Other organizations that are focused on Black issues, minority issues, that see the writing on the wall and that say we want to link arms and make sure that we're putting up a resistance and that we're being offensive about what's happening in that environment. Then on the funding side, right, would be the same. Funders that aren't scared by these tactics and that say, no, we see the work, the proof is in the pudding, the data is here, Black-led CDFIs are creating the impact, right? We are helping to move the needle. We collectively are making a strive towards closing the racial wealth gap. And that say, no matter what, we're going to find a way to do this work. Those are the folks that have to be in the fold. Maybe even those that are working in this space or near it that can help attract additional talent here. That's a huge component. And then I'm going to bring back to media again, because I think so many of our organizations that have these amazing stories never get an opportunity to elevate them and put them on the main stage.
They're busy doing the work.
They're busy doing the work. They're, keeping the lights on and having impact, right? But sometimes there's a very powerful element that media can play in this. And we've seen that just very recently with one of our members, Arlo Washington, documentary, The Barbara Whitterock. If you have not seen it, please watch it. It's been nominated for several awards. And beyond the award, it's just an incredibly wonderfully told story about the work that he and CDFI are doing in Arkansas. And so I think being able to get folks in the media to give their time and talent to this space that are also mission aligned and want to see the racial wealth gap closed, if you can work with us to begin to highlight these stories, share them, deploy an advanced media strategy, I think we can continue to hold the mirror up to those who are in opposition of our work and saying, no, our communities are still suffering. They still need resources. They still need help. And diversity, equity, inclusion is needed. It's still needed in all aspects.
Yeah, I love it. And you know what? We're going to give you an opportunity right now. Share this video on your LinkedIn, right? Like if we're talking about practically amplifying this message, amplifying the work of these organizations, amplifying the work of the Alliance, you're sitting here right now. I would love for you to share that out with your LinkedIn network, because the more eyeballs we get on this, the more our collective impact grows. And that's what it's all about for us here at the Alliance. Well, Madam President, it has been A pleasure. You are brilliant, and I'm just so glad to be serving alongside you today. Any closing thoughts, anything else that you want to add before we wrap up?
Well, thank you so much, Justin. I've had a good time, and I'm just glad to be here to have joined the lineup of our members and our leadership that you've taken the time to highlight in this series. It's so important. It's so important. So I want to thank you for the creation of the Black Money series and all the reach that it's had into our communities and beyond to continue to have this conversation about Black money and its importance. I just want to thank all those that joined today to tune in with little old me and Justin as we, chit chat about all the stuff that's going on here. We really just truly appreciate your connection to us and what that means to the work that we're doing.
I love it. Thank you, Amber. And shout out to Membership Services, the best department at the Alliance. Angela, my colleague, we be, doing it, putting it together. So yeah, thank you to everybody who showed up. You could have been anywhere else and you chose to be here with us for this time. So keep up the great work, everybody. Amber, we're in your corner. We got you all day. And keep making a difference out there. Keep changing the world. Bye for now.
Thanks, Justin. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. This is Black Money.
About economic liberation and freedom.
Critical conversations to invigorate our communities through Black-led CDFIs.
But most importantly, we want people to create wealth.
When we look at our communities, we still see a big disinvestment.
Going from resourceful to resourced.
CDFIs have that high touch. They understand their customers. They know how to reach out to those customers. They stay in touch with those customers.
We are trying to create job makers and not just job takers.
Yeah, I've even heard it said recently that great leaders don't lead from the top down, they lead from the bottom up because they're actually lifting everybody.
We have to do more than just being a regular lender.
Don't give me this story about if I teach you how to fish. Give me some money.